let's have a look at what did happen in Madrid this week so far. Anyway, before the electricity outage got the better of everyone, and yeah, there was only I think one intergenerational matchup so far. But we've had let's start with who wasn't there because Carlos Alcaraz has withdrawn or did withdraw because of injury. We when we reported on the Barcelona Open final last week, we were saying how he tweaked his upper leg, his groin, his hamstring, and yes, he is having to take a few weeks out, rest and recovery, but hoping to be back for the French Open. You guys worried he might not make it to Roland Garros to defend his title? Or you think he's being sensible and just taking the time out that he needs?
He's
I'm
fine.
not worried. I think he'll
Yeah.
be okay. He's young, he's fit. I'm sure he'll be able to rebound from this. And it probably is more of a precaution. And we do know that for some of the more traditional clay courts, Madrid is not always a happy hunting ground from a title perspective. I mean, Nadal never really loved playing in Madrid. And I think if you're going to miss one, going to skip one, I'd skip Madrid. I'd play Rome. The conditions are more similar. And let's get that head-to-head going with Yannick Sinner again.
I know that's the thing I'm slightly interested by is Rome because it has slightly maybe cooled my expectations of getting a Sinner Alcaraz match there. And that's got a very interesting backdrop because I was reading today about, obviously the Pope has passed away in the last few days, and they've now got the I think was it the conclave happening in Vatican City. So Rome, I think, it could be as equally, I guess, chaotic maybe as Madrid because there's going to be all sorts going on in the backdrop.
I don't think Yannick Sinner will have to participate in the conclave, as far as I'm aware. But I think he'll be have other ideas on the tennis court. But then Alcaraz, I think, hopefully we'll see him there as well. And I think based on some of the injuries he's had before, he doesn't like to come back before he is ready. And we've seen a few people actually pulled out. I think we saw Holger Rune, last week's champion, also pulled. Well, he did actually take to the court, but wasn't able to complete that, I believe. Oh no, he didn't take to the court. I don't know if he took to the court, but I do know he exited very early. And I think that's probably the case that it's very hard to back it up. And it is quite a brutal schedule. I mean, you don't get much rest if you won the title on the Sunday. So that is something that I was going to say, Kim. It gives me all the more admiration for the likes of Nadal and the fact that they did just win everything in a clay court season and they were 1 week masters.
Oh, it's mammoth, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous in hindsight. And also, my predictions have been shocking. I think I had a double Danish
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Event, and that's obviously fallen by the wayside. But do you think Carlos Alcaraz is going to be doing some partying while he's injured and laid off? Because there were some comments around that, from Roberto Bautista Agut that Carlos is going to bed at 7 a.m, he said, and maybe being a bit too much of a party animal. What do you make of those remarks?
What's going on here? I thought all Spanish players just have a big love in and all love each other.
That's a normal Spanish bedtime, isn't it?
Him.
They go to bed very late. 7 a.m. is probably about the average. But Joel, have you seen Carlos Alcaraz in a Wetherspoons near you?
I can confirm I have not. But these comments did catch me off guard because the way that Carlos Alcaraz is presented to me as a fan, it does give me this idea that he's a party animal, maybe like a Nick Kyrgios, where there are other things going on. Tennis isn't just like the be all end all. The way I feel like he's got to where he is like pure commitment and dedication to the game. But having said that, maybe it's a work hard, play hard mentality.
Well, check out the documentary. You might find out some more, Joel, about some of the potential antics.
Plugging that.
Yeah.
I mean, one person that might want to go partying to, I don't know, relieve some of the pressure at the moment and their sort of lack of form is Novak Djokovic, because he has now lost 3 matches on the trot, which is something we don't really ever see. He lost to Matteo Arnaldi 6-3, 6-4 in his opener in Madrid. And yeah, just really not at the races. I personally keep thinking, he's had a couple of bad losses, to the likes of, Tabilo, for example, in Monte Carlo. But surely he's going to turn it around and it will suddenly, go back to how we, know and know him off. But it seems that it's not. It's continuing. And I mean, what is going on with him? Do you think there's something he's not telling the world? Because it's really unlike Djokovic, isn't it?
It's very
What's your theory,
uncharacteristic.
Chris?
It's very uncharacteristic. I feel like we've seen this a few times before where maybe there has been an injury or there's been some sort of a triumph against adversity. I'm not sure what's going on here. I do think there's a lot more physical issues, but there's also a lot more unforced errors. And there seems to be a lot less desire to be on the tennis court. And I'm not sure that this is, well, if it's connected to the fact that he did complete tennis, this is a man who has completed tennis, the GOAT of tennis. I mean, if you look at any of the statistics, so I think it must be hard to find the motivation, but I also am surprised he's putting himself in situations where he isn't really fit to be playing and he's playing tennis, because a lot of the comments afterwards are not like Djokovic of old, where he would say, you know what, they played better tennis. I didn't play as well as I should have done. Or he said that his level wasn't necessarily great, but it just feels like he's not really at the races, but he's trying to see if he can kind of muster up something. And it's quite hit or miss. I mean, obviously, he did have that final in Miami, which was a great result for him in a semi-final. Well, I shouldn't say great result. Obviously, he'd want to win that, but he was very competitive in that. But some of the results, the straight sets losses that he's had this year, I mean, it is 3 straight set losses in a row, which is it's not good for him. So there's no great theory here, but I'm not convinced we're going to see Novak Djokovic holding another Grand Slam title. I think we're at the point where the age is getting that little bit higher and it's getting that bit trickier to stay fit. I would love to see it, but I just don't think that this feels the same as some of those other sort of lulls that have had, small lulls he's had in his career.
I mean, maybe he'll still be able to get his 100th tour level title, go down to a T50 and get that. But I mean, I'm not writing him off just yet. I think he could still maybe have a slam in him, but not more than one, maybe.
I don't think so. I just think like he's just not playing good tennis at the moment. I mean, the match against Arnaldi, 32 unforced errors. He was only winning 40% on his second serve as well. And I just feel like, there's a motivation issue, maybe particularly in the early rounds. Like, I still feel like he can bring out his best tennis against, like a top tenner or, a player higher up the rankings. But it feels like he's having real stumbling blocks earlier on in tournaments. And it's anyone's guess, I think, in terms of coming to the French Open. Like, how is he going to perform? What can we expect of him? Because it's obviously best of 5. He has won, lots and lots of Grand Slams before. But I would ask, how much do you feel like that counts for when, as I say, the tennis on the court has just not been the standard, we know that Novak Djokovic can deliver?
Well, I mean, beating Alcaraz at the start of the year in a slam is probably the result that I'm looking to most at this point. I think that's
Paris Olympics.
I mean, it wasn't 5 sets. So I think that's something where that is a bit different. I think physically we have a lot less question marks around that. When it comes to the results this year, I mean, he knows he can do it. And when he is playing well, we've seen him, dismantle Dimitrov. We've seen him play some really great tennis. But it's just so hit or miss. You just don't know who you're going to get, which Djokovic you're going to get. And I think that's the problem. I don't think he knows either. And I think that's something that if you are not fit and you do not want to be playing, maybe it would be a case that you focus on Wimbledon or you focus on the one slam that you really want. We talked about this previously. I think Billie Jean King said that. I'm not his manager. I'm not going to make any decisions, and he knows better than anybody else. But it feels like the full season is not necessarily something that works the best for him now, and maybe more of a limited schedule might work a bit better because he didn't play much before coming to Wimbledon last year.
It does feel like we're getting into kind of it feels like, when Serena Williams was getting towards the end of her career and sort of picking and choosing and really focusing on the Grand Slams because that's what, is still there and still motivates you. I just question how hard it is to just turn up and play and be there to win. And it feels to me like we're going to head into Roland Garros and Djokovic is still going to be using those earlier rounds maybe to find some form and get that spark, because it doesn't feel like he's getting it in the build up. And, we might have one last shot at it in Rome. But it's hard to see where it's coming from at the moment.
We will look back on this clip and he'll have won 5 more Grand Slams.
But
the
next 5.
The next 3 slams.
Yeah.
I know. Don't write him off yet. That's been the story of his career, I think, partially. But I mean, great win for Arnaldi, who did say that Djokovic, was his lifelong kind of idol. So he's obviously great to get a victory, even though he knows that it's not the standard Djokovic we come to expect. But well done, Arnaldi. Another player, I feel like this is a bit of a negative run of results, but Andrey Rublev, he's out. He lost to Bublik in 3 sets. To not defend his title, sadly, and he's now out of the top 15 as a result. His lowest ranking since January 2020, just before the pandemic. So yeah, really not having a great run of form at the moment, and Bublik getting the job done. Bit of a weird second set though, Rublev winning that set 6-love. So what do you make of that? I tell you, Joel, you're looking very baffled. Your expression.
I mean, Rublev is really on the slide at the moment, and his results just generally at the Masters events have not been good this season. He's got a 1-4 record, lone victory at Monte Carlo, and I sort of had a bit of promise going into Madrid, because when he won the title last year, it didn't feel like he was in the best of form, and it was a bit of a surprise that he won that title, and I wondered if he could go on a similar path there and, maybe be sparked a little bit by, his a new kind of partnership with, Marat Safin in the team. But it just feels like his game is off at the moment, particularly with, timing around the baseline wasn't particularly great. I know that Bublik is very hot and cold and very unpredictable, and that makes him quite a tricky, player to play against in terms of concentration and keeping focus. But it's been part of a bigger trend, and I sadly I can't see where the slide stops at the moment, because it's not a focused Rublev. It feels like he needs to get to a point where he's just focusing on his tennis, because it's very up and down at the moment.
He's doing a lot of work off the court, so I think maybe that's connected to this. You have to hope that off the court work is working well, and that then happy off the court, happy on the court. But Kim, was there any more positive news from Madrid?
Yeah, well, there was, fortunately, and that's from a British perspective, because we've got 3 Brits into the 3rd round. I mean, Jake Fernley, let's talk about him, because he got his biggest ever win of his career, beating Thomas Mačák in 3 sets, coming from losing the first set pretty comprehensively as well, 6-1, to come through 6-3, 6-2 in the last 2 sets. So that's fantastic. Jack Draper, he beat Talon Griegspoor, so he's through, beat him in straight sets. And then Cam Norrie, he beat Grigor. No, sorry, he didn't beat Grigor Dimitrov. Lehechka. What am I saying? He's Dimitrov's playing Fern in the next round. He beat Lehechka, another Czech, in 3 sets, 6-love in the 3rd set. So, the Brits getting the job done over some Czech players, coming from a set down. But that's great for Cam Norrie, because obviously he has really dropped. His ranking's gone right down, really not been at the races himself. So, and I think he's got a winnable next match against Diallo of Canada. So we'll see if he can, make a bit of a run perhaps. And as for Fernley, I mean, however far he goes, he's come through qualifying to get here. So, he's got Dimitrov next round. Wow. He's given his best shot.
He's got Dimitrov at the moment, and I think he broke back when Dimitrov was serving for the match, only for the power
the electricity. Yes,
yeah,
of course.
saved a match point, and then it was game over. Yeah. I mean, goodness, that's quite dramatic, but still, we're having a bit more success on the dirt, aren't we, us Brits?
Who's kind of impressed you the most out of our, British male contenders so far?
Well, that's a good question. We've got to say different people. I'm going to say Fernley, because after losing that first set, I also don't necessarily think he's got the clay pedigree necessarily. So I was quite surprised by that result, the way he turned it around, because Mačák's definitely no easy customer, and he's played some great matches this year, very comfortable on the surface. So I think that's probably the biggest win, because I think Jack's got some big game on any surface, and Norrie is someone who is more comfortable, I think, on a hard court, but still can do some damage on clay.
I'm going to say Draper. I think I've been impressed with. I was impressed with the manner of the victory, I think, against Griegspoor. I always talk about him as one of the players who's had a very...
You love him at the moment,
yeah,
Joel.
He's had a very good season. He pushed Zverev to the limit in Munich. So for him to come through in straight sets 6-3, 6-4. I thought that was a very tricky customer that he got done in very routine fashion. So yeah, I've been impressed with Draper, and Upik continues. I think he's got Berrettini next, which could be quite interesting. So yeah, but I've been impressed with Draper.
That's good. Yeah, well, let's hope he can, continue from having won his Masters title earlier in the year.